So it's mainstream American history. Um, the ignominious acts that were done by Whitey Bulger and John Connolly, Joe the Boss, the Irish War with the Italians, the 20s and 30s, and Whitey Bulger, I believe, who went on the run, I believe, in 95. You know, it's only 20 years ago. I'm in my 30s, you know. So, with John Connolly, he was a high-ranking FBI agent, I believe, or, there was some kind of state representative. One of them was FBI agent. One was the mobster, Whitey Bulger. And it was the Irish trio. They grew up together. And my argument has always been that this is this sort of thing is what's going on. These people have family in mental health. They have family in politics and law enforcement and in criminal gangs and organized crime. And today, the most talked about organized crime is prison gangs, and the other ones are kind of under the radar. There's still Irish mafia, there's still Italian mafia, there's still Russian mafia, Armenian mafia, and so on. But these groups are under the radar, and so the focus is really on terrorism and organized crime, and it's the same thing. Prison gangs, which is as organized crime, and the same things still go on where you have people who are related to organized crime figures and people in mental health, and you have retired FBI agents working for Pfizer Global Security and other pharmaceutical security agencies, which have a certain the problem is big pharma overlaps with law enforcement. There's a certain legality that allows them to crack down on these things, even though they're probably more comparable to a private investigators company than to actual law enforcement. But of course, they work in collaboration with law enforcement, and it's the same sort of idea where we have this criminal alliance. With Connolly, I believe it was, he had two FBI informants who ended up being convicted for taking bribes from them. The FBI still has informants that they allow to get away with a whole lot of stuff, and occasionally murder as well. And they still are a corrupt agency. The whole system is still vicious, and I think, I was asked today, well, how come they cracked down on you? Well, they cracked down on me because of my presentation, because of the things that I was talking about, the fact that I'm more right than pretty much anyone else who talks about these things. So they cracked down on me. It's where these things overlap, and where they historically have been proven to overlap. And the fact that we don't have, the secret societies are in this, and that's how it's so obvious. I pointed this out before, several times at least, that secret societies have always had a hand in criminal activity, especially organized crime, and they're almost never talked about when we look at these documentaries. Oh, it was the mafia and, the law enforcement and so on and so forth. But whenever there has been secret society membership exposed, it's like they're the best at maintaining their image and keeping their reputation. It is the secret societies ultimately that oversee all these things and are the main organized criminals behind all these things. I mean, even with the P2 Lodge, the Propaganda Dua Lodge, and the Vatican bankers, and Robert Calvi, and so on, these things have never really been discussed in a documentary that people take seriously for the most part. It's always conspiracy documentaries, even though it's fact. And, that's a dead giveaway about how things work, And I think it's very sickening that everything that I've been describing has happened before on record. But I'm told by pretty much everybody planted in my life that these things are either in my head, or have you ever considered that they're just in your head? When somebody, let's be frank here. Somebody who wears a Black Panther shirt in many of his videos, who's tatted with Crip, who grew up in California, the home of gangbanging, you know, where I believe, what's his name, was hiding in the Bay, Sammy the Bull, an FBI informant who was caught selling ecstasy, large scale ecstasy. Imagine, you would think the FBI lost track of an informant, had no idea that their informant was basically mass distributing ecstasy, which was one of the most popular drugs we have, especially made famous by Mac Dre. You really think that there's not a connection here between the entertainment industry, secret societies, FBI, gang informants. There's on-record informants, there's off-record informants, there's former informants, there's people in the witness protection program, and on, and they all play a part in the things that I am describing. There is no way around it. I'm basically somebody who was privy to a lot of information because of my proximity to some of the hardest gang members. I grew up knowing factors, everything from factors to wannabe gangsters to just regular gang members. They were my acquaintances. So that might have something to do with it too here, is that I had a certain respect in the streets, and then as I started talking about these things more and more, they started attacking that respect. I started being shunned when I wouldn't leave alone the ideas of secret society and psychiatry. When I started talking about those two things, probably back in, I want to say 2003, 2004, that's when my street credibility was really getting attacked. Oh wow, and even now, there not only is there a lot of windows over my house, there's fans going. I simply close my door and there is this huge odor of prescription pills. Today at Subway in Morgan Hill, there I ate a salad there, and there's a lot of liquid in it, partly from salad dressing, but more liquid from the salad dressing than you would expect from the salad dressing, and from the moisture, the wetness on the salad together and on the vegetables. And I ate this one part particularly. It was like I hit the major source of. It's like they put the pills in one part of the salad, and they tossed it around, but it didn't really get distributed as much as they wanted it to when they tossed it. And I was just extremely sick, very stiff-muscled, tired, having trouble speaking. I'm still feeling a little bit this way, And I actually made a video that I might put out later, showing the effects of it. And now there's this huge odor in my room, I mean, for you people not to understand that this is what these people do, on record, the technology's out there, and you think that they wouldn't use it, it's just absolutely appalling. I can really see who are the greatest minds by what they've decided to do. The greatest minds are people such as Jesus. If you look at what he was doing and what he was saying things that require a lot of thought to come up with. And he was living his life in a way that shows that he was applying what he said, because he had the wisdom and the understanding to know that it's not enough to have some understanding of this. You have to truly understand it. And when you truly understand it, that is how you live. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is impossible to be among the wisest, specifically the wisest, and I do mean wisest, of men, and to not practice what is preached by the wisest of men. And that is this humble, spiritual, thoughtful, profound life. Okay? It is impossible to continually serve the New World Order, for example, and to be among the wisest of men. It is impossible. Impossible. Because with wisdom comes a superior lifestyle, a spiritual lifestyle. If you are not a spiritual person in practice, you are not a wise person. The most you can be is clever. Even if you invent things, that was a clever invention. That's all it is. Wisdom, it demands a superior lifestyle. Because the first question that we all ask ourselves is how do I live my life? How do I justify my personal philosophy? How do I live my life? That is universal. We all are forced to ask ourselves that question, whether we're a doctor, a tailor, a farmer, a police officer, what have you. So it is impossible to be among the wisest of men and to not live a life similar to the way that I do. A life of a high moral standard, a life of deep thinking and deep thought, a life of question, a life of a superior moral philosophy which cannot be found in materialism. It cannot be found in quote-unquote deeper materialism. It cannot be found in spiritual bottom feeding. Who are the wisest of men? They are men who live the simple lives, you know? Even if you look at what society perceives as this, it was people like Muhammad, it was people like Jesus, people like Moses, people like the Buddha, and to some people like Gandhi. All these people lived humble lives of deep thinking. They weren't considered the wisest because they invented a fucking spaceship or fucking a cure for fucking some random disease. They were the wisest because of their application of their understanding. And you cannot truly have that understanding without applying it. You know? It's like if I don't know how to tie my shoes, then I'm not going to tie them. It is safe to say when you see someone with tied shoes that this person knows how to tie their shoes. But when you see someone who hasn't tied their shoes, it is pretty safe to say that either they don't know how to tie their shoes, or they do know and they neglect it. Therefore, they lack the presence of mind to truly be wise in the first place, especially not among the wisest of men. And it's the same thing with philosophy. Money is irrelevant. Lifestyle is all that matters when it comes to wisdom. And I tell you now, and listen carefully, it fucking does not matter a fucking bit who is the most clever, who is the most sneaky, who is the most down low, dirty, manipulative fucking coward. That does not matter when it comes to who is the most intelligent, wise person. All that matters is who is the wisest. Everyone else has an inferior mind to the wisest of people. When you serve the New World Order, you are not among the wisest. When you gas people such as myself, you are not among the wisest. There's no way around it. Everyone who's part of the secret society is automatically excluded from the wisest of men. There can be no other way. So help me.